Let's talk about the appraisal gap. Have you heard that term? Um, so, appraisal can be kind of a complicated subject. So, let's start with the basics. What is the appraisal? It is a mortgage lender's way of making sure that the house their client is buying is worth as much as the bank is lending. The bank is trying to make sure that the house is worth as much as the loan, because if the buyer stops paying, they need to know that they can foreclose on that home, put it back on the market, and sell it. So it's kind of a protection for the bank, and it also protects the buyer, or at least it did before we were in this crazy seller's market. It was a way of a buyer being sure that the house was worth what they were paying for it. Well, nowadays that we're in this crazy market that we're in, we are seeing almost every home go into contract with what's called an appraisal gap. That is a buyer's promise that if the house doesn't appraise for the full value that the buyer has offered to bring, that the buyer will stand up with cash and pay for some or all of that difference. And sometimes that can be a small gap. So, for example, maybe the house appraised for $1,000 less than the contract value, or sometimes it can be big. I mean, it could be $30,000 to $40,000 or more, depending on how high the buyer bid on the house. That's what the term appraisal gap means. So, if you have any questions about that, let me know. Um, Before we were in this market, this strong market, what happened when there was when an appraisal shortfall was that either the seller would lower the price of the house to the buyer's loan amount or somewhere in that neighborhood, or the buyer would decide to bring extra cash and go over and above their loan amount, if they could, to keep the deal moving forward. And if the buyer and the seller couldn't agree, they would just terminate the contract. If they couldn't agree on a price in the middle or one way or the other, then they would terminate the contract and the whole thing would go away. But now we're seeing a lot of deals close where the buyer brings the extra cash to come up to the property value so that the deal can go all the way to closing. And in a lot of cases, if you're a buyer, that's the only way to get a house in this market, unfortunately. So anyway, I hope that helps somebody out there. Let me know if you have any questions. Either DM me or drop me a comment below. Thanks. This is Stephanie Steinbeck with Remax Realty. Bye-bye.